few names, few numbers. Now these names are very prominent, when it comes to the world of mobile. So you people might have heard about these names. Now I got these raw facts, correct? So I told you, right, raw facts can be names, numbers. I got these raw facts on my screen. If I ask you, does this data, obviously these raw facts will constitute to some data later on, but if I just ask you, with this stage, the data that I have given you, does this make any sense to you? With all these raw facts that I have given you, does this data make any sense to you?
No, sir.
Okay, why?
बिकॉज सर इस सब को देखे कोई इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं मिल पा रही है, कुछ समझ में नहीं आ रहा ये है क्या.
Okay, so Kajal is telling the names are there, but you are not able to relate the names as well as the numbers, correct?
Yes.
So if I ask you, okay, what is the blocker? Okay, what is the blocker in this case? So Kajal says, the data points are not relatable. Okay, what is the second challenge that you people might think, is the challenge in this data?
So no one can identify any relation between this data. A few are there, कुछ इसमें years के मतलब वो हैं, कुछ revenue का वो है, तो this is quite scattered as of now.
So Arjun meant to say, there is issue with data mapping. That is what you meant?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What else do you feel is the challenge in this?
Not in a correct order.
Okay, very good. So he is telling the data is not organized, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else that you think is stopping you from concluding, what this data is about?
It's not even giving an idea why ये name, your number और बाकी ये years इनके दिए हुए हैं.
Okay, very good. Now you people have heard about these names, right? So you people are aware. If I had given you name of some different thing, right? Let's say name of some asteroids on the universe whose name you might not have heard, you'd think, okay, man, this term is alien to me, correct? Okay. Now, so you can say, idea about the data points, correct? Idea about the data. Now, so we got to see these challenges about the data. Now, when you deal with data in the real world, right? So in the real world, data is going to come to you in this form. So this is what we call it as raw data, right? So all of you know the end product is, ghee, or we say it as clarified butter. But there is a process which goes on and the end result is ghee, correct? So what you have to do every day, you have to boil the milk, when it boils up, you pick up all the fat around it, you keep on saving it for, almost a month, and then after that you start making it, correct? Then the end product is ghee, but you have to deal with the raw material, which is milk, right? Same way, in the real world, we have raw data, but we should know how to make sense of that raw data, correct? Now, let's say I got this raw data. I know there are challenges, but as a data analyst, how can I rectify this? Or, how can I come with a solution which will help me get rid of all these blockers? First thing, if you talk about relatability, right? So I got Nokia. Now, I know this might be a category. Now, when I look at these numbers, I don't know to which category are these numbers mapping to, correct? Yes, no, people. Now, let me say I'll do a favor for you people. Let me map these numbers. Okay. Okay. So now I'm clear about one thing. I got the mapping for the category with one of the number. Now I have got one more numbers, which is nothing but your numerical value. How do I map the other numerical value? Now 10% of my job is done. I am able to relate this category with the number. But again, if I ask you this question, is this data making sense to you? After doing this part, is this data making sense to you? What will you say me?
It's now making sense a little bit.
Okay, so let's say 30% of the data is giving you the clarity, but still I have a hazy picture on my mind. I'm still not able to conclude, correct? So if you people have played this Lego puzzles, right? So they give you small puzzles, and at the end you make everything, assemble it, and it forms a complete picture. So 40% of the pieces you have got, the remaining 60% is still missing, correct? So my job is to find out the remaining 60%. Okay, so let me try to map the other numerical values with this company. So let me put it in this way. Okay, I had missed out. Okay, now if you see, I have mapped the numerical values and the categories. Now what do you think?
It's organized now. It's giving a sense कि like किसी एक particular year में revenue हो सकता है.
Okay, so Arjun is telling the data has become organized now. So how can you make out that this is revenue? This can be sales, this can be profit, correct? How can you make out that this is revenue? It's a wild guess, right?
Exactly.
Okay, now cool. So we will still have some guesses, right? This is revenue or this is sales. Now if I ask you about these numbers, what will you tell about these numbers? Then you'll still start making guess, right? And all of you know, guess is not always correct.
Yep.
Next, so we have organized the data. Let's say 60% of the challenges are removed. So data mapping is done, the relatability is done, data is organized. Now what is the next thing which is missing from this data? What is the next thing that is missing from this data?
No idea.
Okay, so just think about it. There is one key which is missing, which will give you the solution for the entire puzzle. I said you, right? You got all the pieces, just one piece is remaining. Okay, do you want to try? Cool people, see here. Now the data is organized, but there is one important thing which will give me the entire clarity about that data, and that is what we call it as headers, right? I have not got the headers for these numbers. Until I get the headers for these numbers, it is not going to give me the entire clarity of what this data is about. Now let me give this data a header. I'll write mobile companies. Okay, now founded year, revenue in millions. Tell me, so can you see, even though you had 99% of the organized data, but there was one missing key which was not giving you the confidence to have a conclusion about this data. The moment when I got the headers, now it is giving you the confidence that yes, I know what this data is about. Do you all agree with me?
Yes, sir.
So even the fourth blocker is solved, idea about the data. Now you got idea about the data. So that is the reason, even if you have got the data, but how do you make an conclusion about the data? When you have the headers, right? Okay, now you got the headers, you have organized the data. So the journey from this data to this organized data is what we as a data analyst or a data scientist or a visualization expert do on a daily basis. So this is going to be your entire journey till you work in the field of data. Okay, so Bill Gates said this thing 10 years back. So data is going to be the new gold. Correct. Now if you see, data makes so much sense to us. With the help of data, you can find out patterns, you can find out behaviors. I'll tell you how data is being used to find out patterns, behaviors. Okay, now you got an idea about this data that we have, correct, all of you?
Yes.
Now if I ask you few questions about this data, you should be able to answer it. Okay, so let me ask you a simple question. See, the most important part in this data field is understanding the data. If you understand the data well, you will be a good data analyst. The first question that I'm going to ask you is, tell me the name of the company which was founded at the earliest.
Apple.
Okay, someone is telling Apple. Okay, the name of the company which was founded recently.
Motorola.
Okay, very good. Motorola. Okay. Okay. Tell me the name of the company which has generated the highest revenue so far.
Apple.
Okay. Cool. Highest revenue. Tell me the name of the company which has generated the lowest revenue so far.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Now, and the last question. The last question is, what is the average revenue generated so far by all these companies?
The sum of all the companies.
Correct. You will add up all these 300 to 500, 700, 900, 1100, 1200, 1270, 1320, 1360 divided by 6. So how much will it come? So around 240, somewhere close to 240 million, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, these were simple questions that you could answer. Now, if I try to complicate this scenario by asking you a tricky question, tell me the percentage growth of Nokia with respect to Apple. So what percent less is the revenue generated by Nokia as less as Apple? So what will you do? How do you calculate what percent is less? So 150 to 300, almost it is minus 100%.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So minus 100%. So can you see, Nokia is just half the revenue generated by Apple, correct? Half the revenue. Now, what about this? What about Motorola? If I ask you, what percentage of revenue is Apple more than Motorola? So it will be something around, what do you think?
Yeah.
So almost 90 by 210 into almost 40%.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, these are a bit tricky questions which you can solve using this data. Now, why were you able to answer all these questions? Why were you able to answer these questions? Tell me.
By looking at the numbers.
Okay, that is one thing, by looking at the numbers. Now, everything was easy for you because you got this data structure. So when you say data is structured, data which is in tabular form, correct? Data which is in tabular form, or we say data in form of rows and columns. since this data came to us in structured form, or in the other way, let me put it in this way, we were able to bring this data into a structured format, which made my life when it comes to analysis. Correct? Had this data not been in structured format, would you be able to answer these questions? Yes, no people? Obviously no, right? So this is what structure plays a very important role in the journey of data analysis. Correct? You got this data structured. Once this data got structured, you were able to relate all these questions. Now, there are few things that people talk about, right? Now this data is in tabular form, and every value that you see in this data is called a data point. Correct? Is called a data point. So the entire data analysis is all about understanding your data points, how well you understand the data points. Okay, so these are called data points, and all of you know, every single row is also called record. People call it as row, people call it as record. Now when you just look at one single row, what does it say? The company is Nokia, it is the year in which it was founded, and the revenue that it has generated. So we call them as, you know, granularity. We call them as data granularity. So till what granularity the data is defined. Okay, so these are basic terms which makes your life easy when it comes to analysis. Now I just had 6 rows of data. So I just had 6 rows of data, so it was very easy for you to analyze it, right? You did not need to use any of those modern tools to analyze this data. Correct? This can be done manually in head. Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let's say if I had given you 10 million rows. If I had given you 10 million rows, and if I had asked you to analyze this data, will you be able to do it so soon? At least you will take some 2 weeks, 3 weeks time, right?
Yes, sir.
If you have IQ greater than, if your IQ is greater than 260, that is a different use case. Okay, so you people don't fall in our category. Okay, so we are average humans. Okay, if your IQ is less than this, obviously you would need some statistical tools which will make your life easy in the journey of data analysis. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Now that is the reason we have all these statistical tools in the market. So when you start this journey, the very basic tool that we use for analysis is Excel. So all of us, have heard of Excel from many decades. It's there in the market from almost, 3 decades, correct? But people used to use it to store data. But once these modern technologies have come up, right? Data science, analytics, we have made Excel as one of the foundational tools that you should know, and which will help you in your analysis of data. Correct? Now, even all of us know that Excel is not a modern tool. Obviously, it was there in the market from 3 decades. So all the tools that you are having in the recent time, right? Tools which are being used a lot in the last 5 years, they have come up with more capabilities which your conventional tools cannot do. Do you all agree?
Yes, sir.
Now, if you talk about Excel, I know although Excel can help you with your analysis, but Excel can help you to a small extent. Let's say, when you have small amount of data, when the size of your data is less, let's say, 5 lakh rows, in that case, Excel would be a good friend for you. But all of us know in today's time, the size of the data will be, in GBs, or let's say, even 1 GB can hold almost 100 million rows. So if you have GBs of data, do you think Excel can help you in your journey of data analysis?
No, sir.
Correct? In that case, you have to move to a tool which has got more capabilities as compared to Excel. In that cases, we move to databases. Okay, we move to databases. So, in simple terms, if you want to understand what is a database, it is a small container which can store your data in form of tables, but it can store huge amounts of data also.